Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to everyone who's donated for this great charity so far. We will be talking to Miranda Young. We will bring her on.
Hi, Miranda.
Hi, Miranda.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem at all.
How's it been your end?
It's been good. I've been enjoying watching the festival and watching you guys, and it's been a great weekend. It's kind of been cold and snowy over here, so it's been a great weekend to stay in and watch the festival.
Definitely. It's cold and damp here. No snow yet.
No snow. We're still waiting.
We rarely get it here in Southeast Tennessee, but yesterday we got a little bit, so I'll take every little bit I can get. Otherwise, I would rather it be nice and pretty weather.
Yes, definitely.
Could you just give the viewers that are watching, people that don't know who you are, just a little bit more info on yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Miranda Young, and I'm from Tennessee. And so I'm a biker, and I've been a paranormal investigator for 10 years. And I travel around the country on my motorcycle to different haunted and historic locations on my motorcycle. And I have a web series that I highlight these locations. I like to talk about the travel that I take to get there, as well as the history, give real in-depth history on the area, the location, and then I do a paranormal investigation to see if we get any type of cool activity or anything to validate the haunting.
Wow.
Sounds really
What
good.
locations have you been to that have stood out?
Well, I've been to a lot of the big ones, Waverly Hills, St. Augustine Lighthouse, Lizzie Borden House. I've been to a lot of the large commercial locations, but on my show, I really like to highlight the local legends and lore. A lot of different places that maybe people haven't really heard about. I will go and read a lot of books, or people will reach out to me and tell me about the different locations in their area. And then I'll go, and part of my thing is to really show and highlight that area and bring awareness to it, so that people, may want to travel to that area and increase the tourism.
Wow.
We've heard so much about Waverly Hills. What was it like there?
Waverly Hills was really cool. Just pulling up to the location itself is just overwhelming and awe-inspiring, because it's such a huge building. And, there are a lot of interesting stories because a lot of people have investigated it. And, it was a very active night for me there. I was with a team, and we were there from, I think, about 8 until 4 in the morning. And got a lot of activity in the death chute, or the death tunnel. And then there was also an area where they had where they would store the bodies before they would take them down. Because I know at one time there were so many deaths at night, they would go and they would sneak the bodies down to this area and store the bodies. I got a lot of activity in there, as well as in the actual morgue, and then on the 3rd floor.
Wow.
Okay, it's definitely a place we want to come over and do.
Absolutely.
So many places in America that we want to do, like Alcatraz. That's a big one.
Is it Stanley? Is it Stanley Hotel?
Stanley Hotel.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have. I've been there twice. I've not got to do an actual full-scale investigation there, but I went out there, and just Estes Park in and of itself is just gorgeous. And there's stories about tragic events and different things that have happened as you're driving through the canyon just to get to Estes Park. So the whole area is surrounded with interesting lore and stories. And then just the hotel itself, it's another one, that when you see it, surrounded by the mountains and everything, it's just beautiful. The second time I was there, it was more of kind of a ghost tour sort of thing. And we got some interaction. What was interesting is the lady who we were speaking with, she was a young girl, and she liked, of all things, she liked Justin Bieber music. And so they were playing Justin Bieber, and we were getting some interaction as soon as we started playing him. It was really quite an interesting experience.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh,
We
that's
have to
awesome.
make a journey over to America. We have to.
Yes, and come for a couple months because you're going to want to do a whole cross country trip.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
we
so
said. It's
much to
gonna have to be a
see.
road trip. It's gonna have
Yes.
Yeah,
to.
not saving up.
Yeah. So if I'm correct, do you do photography as well?
I do. I actually started out with photography. So I've worked in the photography industry for about 10 years. And, well, no, I'm sorry. I've worked in the photography industry for almost 20 years. And 10 years ago, one of the people that I had worked with, they saw that I had the background in photography. And so he was a member of a team, actually a co-founder. And so he reached out to me to start looking at some of their photography and see if, I could help them to analyze what they were getting and maybe possibly debunk or,
Yeah.
try to see if it could be possible activity. And so I started looking at photos, and then in order to pay me back, they invited me to go on an investigation. And, we had some great activity. It was at a local bar and marina. And just a lot of Class A EVPs, a lot of activity. And so, I started going on investigations with them and then was invited to join the team. And so I was their photo analyst and marketing as well as investigator and put their videos together and stuff for 8 years. But I found that I was going out on my own on the weekends and going to different locations on my bike and highlighting a lot of these locations just through my photography. And they were getting a lot of interest and a lot of comments on social media. People asking, what's the story behind the photography? What's the story behind, these locations that you're going to? And, people suggesting, hey, maybe you should, tell us the haunted history of it. So, so that's when I started thinking, I should go ahead and document this through video. And that's really where Ghost Biker Explorations started, was through the interest in photography.
Okay.
Wow. So
Interesting.
when you actually investigate, do you investigate with kits or do you go in quite basic?
Well, I do multiple. So, I have to be really particular about what I travel with since I am on the motorcycle.
Yes,
And I've actually, I have a couple go-to items. I have, kind of like a military go bag that's got my essentials in it. I love my EDI box, my dowsing rods, REM pod, and of course my recorders. And I've got some battery operated cameras to where, because I am a one person show, I'm either traveling with just myself and a camera person or just myself. I will use battery operated cameras to try to cover a larger area. And so those are a couple of the essentials. If I can't have anything, I always want the recorder, a camera, and then also my dowsing rods and the EDI box. But I've created these kits that if I'm doing a large location, that I can quickly go to a room and drop a camera, a flashlight, a audio recorder, some pre-recorded questions. I can drop those real quick and then go off and investigate and come back and be able to pick all of that up. If it's a really large location.
Christopher.
Yeah, we just got a question come in. Have you ever captured evidence on a 35mm camera rather than a digital camera?
I have not, but I prefer using the older cameras. With the digital cameras, there's so much room for error. Even just now, we see it all the time with using iPhones and Androids and everything. If you shoot and there's a light source coming toward you, you're going to automatically get the green dot or get false positives. So you get a lot of that with digital. Plus, there's a lot of pixelation and stuff like that. That to me, a 35mm seems to be more accurate, and that's honestly why you won't really see a lot of photography evidence posted on any of my sites, because a lot of the time, we can take. And especially with digital, we can take 100 pictures and you're lucky if you get one that may potentially have something unexplained. So Most of the time what I'm doing with my photography is more beauty shots. And I like to go through the location during the daytime. And of course, sometimes I investigate during the day, but I like to go through during the daytime, taking pictures of all the rooms, all the area, and anything that, of a night when you go, it may create that false positive. Things look different in the night. Things look, and in the heat of the moment, things look different. So I like to really use my photography to kind of get the lay of the land and everything before I investigate. And I can use it as reference after the fact. If I catch something at night that seems kind of unexplainable, I can go back and reference and see if there may have been something in the picture during the daylight to cross-reference.
Yeah, Christopher also said that's less easy to fake.
Yes, and things, here in America, some locations have mannequins and stuff set up in there, or haunted houses or something set up inside. And, or even if it's an outside location, there may be a tree or something that you don't remember there. I mean, the human mind is not a very good memory aid when it comes to, witnessing and what they saw in the moment. So it's really good to have that photographic evidence to be able to cross-reference and make sure.
Yeah. How was the Lizzie Borden house?
The Lizzie Boarding House was very cool. What was really neat to me about that is a lot of the furniture, the doorknobs, the banisters, everything was original to the home when Lizzie and her family lived there. And I did that as a collaboration investigation with Soul Sisters Paranormal, which I think is coming on after this. And so we traveled up there, stopped at Fort Mifflin along the way, and did Lizzie Borden. And then when we came back, stopped in Gettysburg. But so it was such an awesome trip. But Lizzie Borden itself was amazing because, they're a bed and breakfast now. But we had the entire house. And so it was myself and the 5 ladies from Soul Sisters. And then the next morning, they actually feed you the breakfast that Lizzie Borden and the family ate on the day that they were murdered.
Oh my God.
So most of the activity that we got there was, we felt like, so there's an area where there's children upstairs, and that's believed to be some neighborhood children, not ones that actually lived in the house. So we got activity from that, as well as we believed we were getting mostly Andrew Borden. Didn't really get anything that we believed to be Lizzie, but we believed some of the activity was Andrew Borden.
Okay.
Wow.
It's interesting because, you see it on the paranormal shows, but you don't get much of an insight, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So hearing, from what you're saying, you get more detail.
You get more from a personal experience.
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just like I said, just being in there and being able to touch the doorknobs that, Lizzie and her family touched, or the handrail, and being able to actually see, when you go to the top of the steps, and the docents will tell you this, when you go to the top, that you can look over and you can see where Mrs. Borden was laying under the bed. And so to put yourself in the situation, based on the stories that you hear about how everything went down, you can really kind of see, the events play out. And it was a great experience and it was active. I was hoping, you hear about some of the different real dramatic experiences that folks have there. To me, it wasn't really anything like that, but more so just good, solid evidence, and then just being able to be there was what was really cool.
It's one thing seeing it on TV, but to actually be in a location, there's so much history as well.
Absolutely.
It's for us, you hear about 30th Drive, you see the film on it, but actually going there, it's wow. And it wasn't what I imagined.
Wasn't what I expected. It's a lot smaller. The house was a lot smaller than what you see on TV. And you imagine it being a lot bigger, because it's a small semi-detached council house.
Yeah, and that was just left. It's like left original.
It's been left original, and it's
really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think some of the like the furniture or the artifacts there, I think they're just like replica, but it looks original, and you know the decor just is like it's not modern. It's really outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see that, it was amazing to just walk into that house.
And you know, TV has a way of doing that, of making things larger than life and unexpected. But some of these locations, you know, when you go to them, you realize just kind of how it is. And that was also sort of the thing with Lizzie Borden, is I know some of the furniture was replicas, but they did a very good job, because it wasn't actually, you know, Andrew's couch, but you know, where he was murdered, but they did a really good job of matching some of that up and keeping it as authentic as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good when it's done like that. You know, it just gives that
left the way it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another question there saying, have you ever investigated the Hinsdale house?
I have not. I actually, I'm an artist, and I did a drawing of the Hinsdale house that can be seen on my website. But I'm looking forward to getting to meet Daniel Class real soon, and I hope to one day make it up and investigate, because I know that's a really hot one here in America that a lot of people enjoy investigating, and I've heard some amazing stories come out of there.
It's like what we've heard with Nick Roth.
Yes.
He did the Hinsdale house, and then you know, in it, I think he had, was it dreams he was having? 30th Drive over here.
Yeah, I think since going there, I think that made him come over here to do 30th Drive.
Since doing Hinsdale.
I'm sure it was a Hinsdale. I could be wrong. I'm sure. I know it's one of these. I'm sure it was a Hinsdale. I'm sure it was.
I'm sure.
He had a call in to come over and investigate about the Black Monk, which again varies on whether the Black Monk is true or not. Different people think differently.
Yeah.
Okay. And I like that sort of thing too. Those are the type of investigations I like to do. You know, one of them that ended up being a big case for me was a local story, a local legend about a monk who had passed away in a train accident. The doctor recovered his body, put the body in a bathtub, and dissolved the skin from the bones and used the bones in his medical office. And so it's a very well-known story here in Southeast Tennessee, and actually in the whole region of the South. And so I was actually able to, I traveled, it was in Charleston, Tennessee. I traveled there. I investigated the train site, or the site of the train wreck. Got some really interesting EVPs and interactions with the spirit rods, as well as spirit box. And I just so happened to come in contact with a person who owned an abandoned house, but they had acquired the alleged tub that the monk had used. They had acquired it from an estate sale. And so, of course, not really knowing, I mean, it was the correct period for the tub. But of course, you know, you have all these stories, but went into the house, did the investigation, got some great stuff actually captured some pretty cool photographic evidence as well. And the house itself was haunted. And I've talked about this on several different shows, but it ended up being a year-long case for me, just that house itself, because we couldn't determine if the activity was coming from the tub and the legend, or if it was coming from the house as well. And so the family was nice enough to let me essentially come in anytime I wanted to, because she was an elderly lady and she never went into the house. And we ended up documenting this in season 1 and season 2, and actually ended up having a demonologist come in and he did a home liberation on the house, because the activity had gotten so intense and so strong. So, that's the type of stories I like, the ones that some of the people believe and some don't. And you just really don't know until you get in there and start doing that investigation, because there's no stupid questions. There's no stupid experiments. You never know how they're going to interact.
Exactly. And it's a learning curve on the way as well.
Absolutely.
You learn all these different stories, and until you've been there and experienced it, you make your own choice.
Absolutely. And it's the same way with tools. There's a lot of controversial tools, and people have their opinions about different tools and everything. But I often say, if a spirit wants to interact through a smoke alarm or smoke detector, they'll do it. They'll interact with whatever they can. We just have to be open-minded, and and then have a healthy sense of debunking and such. But you can't really limit, because you just never know.
Yes. I mean, because we always go in like not skeptical, but
there's a certain part of us that is skeptical, but I believe that is quite important with the paranormal.
Absolutely.
Because we don't want to think that everything that happens is paranormal.
If you can't debunk it, then
if you've gone through every avenue that you could think of, no other logical explanation, then you can put it down as unexplained.
Absolutely. And that's what I do. I'll very rarely, actually, I don't think I've ever classified anything as haunted. Most of the time it's unexplained, and a lot of the time when I go in, especially if I'm doing a residential, I go in with the sense that, there's a lot of the time there's an explanation for stuff. And, I want to go in asking detailed questions, getting as much information as possible, and trying to look at all sides before I go to, okay, this is something unexplained, and then do the full scale investigation. And if I can, go back multiple times, just to see, because we all know as investigators that just because something doesn't happen when you're there that time, it doesn't mean it's not haunted or not an active location. They may just not want to communicate with you, or it may just be an off night. So I'm the same way. But it can
be the energy that's been given off too, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
So I believe what you put in is what you get out.
Absolutely.
Every investigation.
I've had that happen at a lot of different locations. One in particular, Willow's Weep. I investigated and highlighted that one early on, or this past year. It was my season finale of season 3. And it's known as it has the reputation of being the most evil house in America. And, it's in Indiana. And there's all these stories of, people when they leave, they're very affected by this location. But I went with myself and another female, and we didn't have any experience like that at all. Now, that doesn't invalidate the experiences that these other investigators have gotten. It was an oppressive location, but I seem to, for myself, I seem to think it had more to do with what you take in and your intentions and expectations. I don't go in intending to look for demons or go for the dark side. I'm very interested in that side, but I don't go looking for it. I try to take the more historical narrative, and that's really what I like. But you never know what you're going to find until you go into a location. And this one, I mean, it was definitely oppressive. I didn't feel anything evil, but then again, that may have just been our night, and it doesn't really invalidate anyone else.
So how are you when it comes to history? Do you like to know a little bit about the location, or would you rather go in with completely blind and then seeing what you get?
It depends on the location. I really like to know a lot of the history. If I'm doing something that I'm covering for my show, I really like to know the history first, because I do have to, since I am on the bike, really plan the investigation. As far as taking trigger items and taking the specific tools that I need. So I do like to know the history. If I'm doing a more commercial type location, well, let me put it this way. I like to know the history of what happened. I don't always like to know the hot spots where people get.
Right. Okay.
Because I like to go in, excuse me, I like to go in and let the location speak to me and sort of direct me to where to spend my time. And if I know that history, then I feel I can be more direct with my questions and know more tools to use. But, because odds are when we do a location, if we did the same location just on a different night, we're not going to get the same stuff. And so I would really rather know about the hot spots after the fact, just for that purpose.
That's like us. Like if we go to a new location we haven't been to, we'll kind of try and get like a few
snippets,
names or
little bits, so that when we do go there, if we can try and validate,
we can ask that person and just validate.
Some people like to go in completely blind.
They do. And, a lot of the locations, because I do investigate a lot more of the local legends, they're uninvestigated. So a lot of the time I am going in blind. I'm just really armed with that history. But, I really look at it as I approach everything very respectful. And, if I'm going to somebody's house as in real life, I like to address them by their name and address them directly. And so I feel it's really the same way when I'm dealing with the spirit world. These were once people. And so I like to be able to address who I'm talking to. And that's why trigger items and stuff are important, because I look at that as, you bring a gift to somebody whenever you go to their house. I like to be able to do that. And I think that it's served well, as in getting, some of the evidence that I've been able to get.
Yeah, we generally, like, if we know there's going to be children, we'll take like a teddy bear or, like a toy car, if it, stuff like that.
We have another question from Valerie. Have you ever been to the Winchester house?
I have not. My dad has been out there, and I saw some pictures from out there. He was out there in the late 60s, but no, I have not been. California, Oregon, and Washington I've been to most of the states around here, and those are the only three that I've not been to. And, I'm like you, I would really love to do Alcatraz, and there's so much out there on the West Coast, and the Winchester house would definitely be a dream location to investigate.
Yeah, agree on that one.
Yeah,
definitely. There was another question as well.
Another one here from Rosemary. Have you ever helped with police investigations?
I have not, as far as ghost biker explorations. I did get the opportunity back when I was with a member of the team that I was with, very, very early on. We had a police officer on the team, and I had the opportunity to actually look at some different open investigation photos. One of them in particular was a homicide photo, and it was a very interesting, I was unable to disclose anything, but there was this, the best way I can describe it, I mean, you saw the crime scene, but there was this, it almost looked like a full body apparition kind of over top of everything there in the scene. It was one of those things where, as investigators, when you lay down to go to sleep, this stuff is real because you're experiencing it. Some things, once you see them, you can't unsee. And for a while, it was one of those things that when I laid down to go to sleep, I would think about, because, and it wasn't the gore of the scene, but just seeing that figure, so it was definitely something that was eye-opening and really stuck with me.
That would definitely stick.
Yeah. We have another one from is it Eddie? Yeah, Eddie Frey. When you come over to the UK in September at the Bosworth Hall, do you plan to stay longer and explore some of the locations here?
I do.
Ooh.
And if so, have you got any places in mind?
I don't have any, a list just yet. But I definitely want to come over. There's a lot I want to see. I actually hope to maybe be able to rent a motorbike and ride over there. That would be a dream. But I know you guys have a lot of different locations, and since this will be my first time in your area, I'm just completely open and planning to stay a little bit longer so that I can take in some of the different sites. Obviously some of the touristy stuff, but I'm so excited because your history over there is so unique and so old, and so much older than it is over here. And I'm looking forward just to being in it and experiencing it and getting a couple investigations in.
I think Valerie just said Shepton Prison. And we got, how many prisons have we got here that you can go in? 4 or 5? It could be more, actually.
About 4 that I know of. Could be a bit more, because some have been turned into hotels.
Yeah.
Where people can stay the night.
The main one is you've got Shepton Prison, Shrewsbury Prison,
Gloucester Prison.
I think you've got
Portsmouth,
Dorchester.
Dorchester. There is so many.
There's a few.
It's just really good fun as well.
Shepton and Shrewsbury have got to be on our top list over here.
Wow. Are they just very active, or?
Shepton, we haven't had an amazing amount. I mean, EVPs, wonderful for EVPs. Activity-wise, like door slamming, we haven't experienced it. Other people have. Shrewsbury, we've had the activity of physical stuff.
We've had physical.
Okay.
But Shepton, especially for history.
Shepton, I mean, well, we've had one occasion in a building that's right opposite the prison, which used to be where they used to walk them in and check in. One occasion now, there's a dark energy down at the bottom in the basement. They don't let the public go down there generally. We just got the permission to go down there on that day. And I experienced something quite dark and negative down there. I was pushed in the back. My mood generally changed. I didn't want to leave the prison. I come over very tearful. For about 4 days afterwards, I was in a very negative kind of mindset, which wasn't like me at all. And it affected me for a good 4 days. I would say that's the worst I've ever experienced with paranormal.
Well, I know.
Carry on.
I was going to say, one of my favorite places here is Brushy Mountain State Prison, and I've done it on 6 different occasions, and I actually slept there in the solitary confinement. And I know exactly what you mean, because that location did affect me on one specific occasion there. One investigation, and it was, you could see the people who were there with, because when I slept there, I was by myself that morning. But the next day, because we were doing a full weekend investigation, when the team was there, something grabbed my neck, and you could actually see when I was standing there, it appeared before your eyes, this red handprint, and it felt like something had slapped me, or that, when you grab and they kind of burn, that's kind of how that felt like. It was almost like a hand burn. And there's definitely some more negative type activity. Of course, you're in a prison, and they house the worst of the worst. So you're not going in, I've done hotels, and it's a totally different. Now, you may have some darker energy in those hotels, but it's completely different than investigating the prison. You know what you're getting when you go in. These people were not savory people in life, so they're more than likely going to be that way in the spirit world.
You come across the odd few that you get that feeling that they shouldn't have been there. You get,
there's a lot of sadness in some prisons.
Yes.
There's a lot of obviously people that were wrongly accused.
Yes.
As well. So you have kind of a mixture in Shepton prison in particular. They used to have women and children.
Yeah, back in this.
Wow.
Yeah, really old.
16, 17?
17, 18.
It's old prison, that one, really old.
Hundreds. And they used to be in there, and the things they used to get them to do, the rope, you know.
Like unpicking rope and stuff like that.
Where their hands would actually bleed.
Wow.
And they had a treadmill at one stage where they got the prisoners just to keep the treadmill turning for no reason, just like 12 hours a day. It's just
their punishment. Wasn't it? Yes. Not nice. Yeah.
Really not nice.
Wow. And I'm sure you can feel that when you
can. Yeah. But it's got a sort of sadness feel about it when you walk in. You can feel the energy all around you, really.
And that dates back to what, 1600s?
Yeah.
So it goes back quite far. But the building is just absolutely stunning. You know, outside, inside. It's amazing. It's a beautiful building.
And that's the same way with a lot of the different prisons here. Just the unique build of them. A lot of them, you know, were built of a specific rock unique to that area, and then look like castles, you know. And so a lot of the prisons here in the States, even some of the small jails, you know, have that look and that beautiful appearance. And it's really interesting, the whole contrast of, and a lot of the sanitariums are the same way around here. It's just beautiful. But then when you get on the inside, you really feel that sadness, and it's such a unique parallel.
Yeah. We have a question here again from Eddie Frey. First stop would be Warwick Castle. It's on the doorstep to Bosworth Hall.
Definitely worth looking at.
100%. I agree with that one. It's very, very, it can be quite active, that place.
Okay.
Definitely one for you to
history, photography, spot on as well.
I am just so excited. You have no idea to, you know, be able to experience all of this, and I can't wait to pick everyone's brain and you know, get some of these locations to visit, because I'm sure I'm going to be emptying my camera out about every night, because I'm going to have so many pictures and so much to experience.
Loaded with memory cards and stuff like that. Jolene said.
Hi, Jolene.
She said, "Oh, yeah."
I'm so looking forward to meeting her as well.
September. Yeah, it was going to be good. Really good. Really looking forward to that myself.
Libby Thomas said, "Have you been to the Baker House in Florida?"
The Ma Barker House.
The Ma Barker House. I misread that.
I actually have. And, you know, I know that the ladies that you all are going to be speaking to next, that's, you know, one of their big locations. It's one that has not been investigated by anyone really other than them. I did have the opportunity a year and a half ago when I was down there in Florida doing collaborations with Soul Sisters. I did have the opportunity to go in there and do an investigation. And I had hoped to actually release my episode yesterday, which was the anniversary of the shootout. And but because of, you know, everything, my seasons typically release in October, but I'm trying to release more content throughout the year. So I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks to actually have that episode to come out. That place is another one that's so unique, because all of the furniture and everything, I mean, you can see that you can stick your fingers in the bullet holes, and they've got chairs there that have bullet holes in them where, you know, they just got hit in the crossfire, and whoever, you know, had that home, they just had, you know, the thought process to save all of this. And when you go in, I mean, that's another one. When you go in, you feel it, and they've done an amazing job of keeping it together. And, you know, it's great to be able to go in and experience that. And it was actually a very active night. I used some interesting and unique trigger items that hopefully will, you know, we'll be able to show that really soon on my episode. So stay tuned on that.
Are these episodes available online, or?
They are. So we just wrapped season 3. And in the past, all of my episodes have come out every Tuesday in October. Seasons 1, 2, and 3, you can see on the Ghost Biker website, www.ghostbikerexplorations.com, as well as on the Ghost Biker Explorations Facebook and YouTube channel. They can go back, catch up on any of the episodes, as well as any of the lives. I do also do live streaming podcast where I talk to different investigators and different location owners. So people can go and they can watch all of that on those 3 platforms.
Okay, we just had somebody ask, Christopher, do you release your content on VidiSpace? I
don't have it on VidiSpace at this time. All of it is on YouTube and Facebook and the website. You know, I like having the ability to just, you know, I guess it's self-produced. And so I like having the ability to just release that as needed. And it at this time, it's on those platforms.
Perfect. Any more?
No.
Libby said she'd love to go to the Ma Barker house.
That is definitely a great place, and Soul Sisters will be able to tell some great stories about that and their experiences there. It's just, you know, like I said, for people to preserve this history is something that's near and dear to me, and that, you know, what I try to do with my episodes, any opportunity I get to work with, you know, historical societies or different locations, the preservation and the restoration of history is what is first and foremost important to me with these episodes. The paranormal is always second, but the preservation is first.
Yeah. I mean, history is, you know, it just keeps going back and back. You think you've got what you have on one location, but you find so much more.
Yes.
And it's just never ending.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy about history.
Yeah, and you know, and that's with my episodes, that's the one thing that is most important, because when I'm setting up these episodes, each one takes me about 3 months to do, because I try to do a lot of research. If I can go to the actual historical society and speak with people in that location, sometimes I don't get that opportunity, but I like to do that rather than just going by what I find online. And then reading and such. And so finding that history, and I get all of that set up before I go. And, you know, the way I film, you know, I tell the story on video and don't, you know, narrate, but I tell the story. And then when we film it where it puts the person in the moment in the investigation with me. And so, you know, you never know when you go to the location if you're going to get activity. So when I'm picking the locations, I always like to pick ones that have an interesting enough history to where even if I don't get any activity, I still want to highlight it because, you know, there is that story behind it. We've just been really fortunate to get, you know, at least something at these locations. And so, you know, one of them that I picked in particular this past season was a troop train accident that happened in 1944. And we completely did this different than any type of investigation that I had done on video before. It was a location that had never been investigated. It was outside and it was during the day. And so it was important for me to be able to show that, you know, it doesn't have to be dark. It doesn't have to be creepy. And things happen all the time. We just have to be quiet and patient and listen because you never know. And it ended up being a really big hit that episode was. And I did, you know, a tribute at the end to the soldiers that had passed. And the type of tools even that I had to use. We couldn't really rely on straight EVPs because you had the water noise, you had road noise. Literally the spot was in between 2 mountains. So the sound carried, you know, through the valley there. So, you know, if I have the opportunity to share somewhere that's got such an amazing history, then, you know, that's what I'm going to go for.
Yeah, definitely. Eddie said you will be spoilt for choice at Warwickshire. Has so many great locations to start exploring.
Stratford upon Avon.
Oh yeah, William Shakespeare.
Very, very old. Wow. Lovely place to go. So old.
Wow.
Been there a few times. Lovely.
Yeah, there's so many places. So many.
I'm going to have to get a list from Eddie.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And obviously Cardiff Castle.
Cardiff Castle as well. Another good place.
I can't wait to see the castles over there.
So many. There's so many to choose from. Where do you start?
Yeah. Well, Warwick will be your closest castle when you come over.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's massive.
Wow.
Massive, huge.
So on any investigation that you've done, have you ever encountered anything that's been really negative or?
Yeah, the house that I mentioned, that had the tub in it, we called that the house on Sunset Hill. There were 5 entities that were in that house, and one in particular, we do feel that one was related to the tub, or at least a residual energy from the tub. But there was one entity in the house that was very dark and negative. Another that was, I say, leans more negative, but more kind of conflicted. And then the other 3 were entities that I felt were being oppressed by the main dark one. And when we did the home liberation, I called in a demonologist, Leon Wilkes, and he had his partner that came in as well. And, you know, we were able to get the signs of departure, which, again, a home liberation or a home exorcism is something that is completely new to me and something that I had never experienced. And we were just very lucky to be able to film that and bring our tools. And that was something that this demonologist had never had done as well. He didn't have investigators, you know, they reviewed my case, and he didn't have investigators along that was actually analyzing evidence. But the spirit in that house that was particularly dark, and when I say, you know, that I was going a lot, any opportunity I could go in there to do experiments, I would. And it got very familiar with me to where, I mean, it would call out my name. I've had some very clear, one particular clear EVP, and all of this can also be seen, you know, on my series. But one particular EVP, as I was setting up to leave, just as clear as can be, you hear Miranda, and then you hear, "You're going to die." And, you know, while I feel like, you know, it was an empty threat or a scare, it was a very clear EVP. And, you know, we got the impression, you know, because these spirits that were in there would actually mimic, there had been 2 people that had passed away, and we didn't really feel that that was the energy that was in there. We didn't feel that was the case. We felt like what was in there was actually mimicking them to try to draw the homeowner back into the house. So it was a really interesting case, and it really got to the point to where it wasn't safe to keep it going. The homeowner actually, like I said, she was an elderly lady. The only time she ever went over, or eating body ever went over there, was to mow the yard. Nobody really went into the home. And it was just used for storage. It had been shut down for about 10 years. They had been using it as a rental property after the family moved out. And so it had sat abandoned, and the owner had decided that she was going to rent the property out. And this was after I had spent a year in there doing, you know, doing case studies and everything. And so we didn't feel that it was really safe to do that at that point. And we were also at the point where we realized, even if she hadn't been going to rent it out, we were to the point where it was like, okay, we really need to stop, and something needs to, you know, you really have to know when to say when. And I had gotten all the evidence that I needed. And when I showed it to the demonologist, I mean, it was a no-brainer. And they flew up from Florida and went in, and it was a 10-hour experience. 10-hour process, and very exhausting. And, you know, he let me highlight that on my episode as well. So that was a real honor, because a lot of the time they don't let you film that. And so, anyways, that was definitely probably the darkest and most intense. I mean, when you have the floor actually start shaking underneath you, that's unlike anything I've ever experienced anywhere. You really start to see the power that some of these, you know, these spirits that we're dealing with has. And so, you know, like I said, we were able to capture all of this on video, and it was just unlike anything I'd ever experienced before, that entire house.
Yeah, that you know, to capture it as well.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, like
that's an experience.
and when you do a lot of investigations or you go places, you know, you could sit there for hours wanting something to happen, you know, asking politely, and nothing will happen. You turn your attention away from them and start talking to the crew or, you know, anything. And it kicks off and you're not prepared. You're not even ready for it. And you miss it.
That's exactly, and you know, and that's what I've learned through this whole experience is how important documenting is. You know, always have that camera going, always have that recorder going, even when you're rolling up to the location, because in the very beginning there, we lost some interesting things because we didn't have the recorders going. And so, and at that house, it was myself and my camera guy at the time. And it was, you know, you always had it going, and, you know, I can sense some things sometimes. And, you know, one time in particular, when we were filming, I was sitting there and I was like, there's something behind me. And I had a K2 meter, and I'm really big to put K2 meters, flashlights and stuff behind me when I'm doing things, because a lot of the time they may not want to come out and interact for whatever reason. And as soon as I said that, the K2 meter starts flashing. And I mean, it was far behind. So there was no power in the house. And, you know, it was not picking up from our cameras because my camera guy was ahead of me. And I didn't even know that it went off until we were sitting there. And it's like, oh my goodness, I say this, and there that is flashing in the back. So, you know, you can't let your guard down at all through any of this, because you never know. And I had probably my most watched live at that location. It was supposed to be a 15-minute setup where I let people send in questions and, you know, ask different things and tell me where to set up the cameras. But it ended up being an hour and 15-minute live of nonstop activity. And whatever was in this house, it got to the point, it got so used to you, you know, introducing yourself and interacting with it, that if you went in and you ignored it, which we did on one specific occasion, it would do everything it could. It even slammed the door, you know, and it did everything it could to get your attention, no matter what room you were in, pulling hair, you know, moving stuff, pushing, anything it could to get the attention. So it was a very unique experience. And for me, it was my first where I was able to essentially, I guess, build a relationship and be able to go in anytime and really get to know sort of the nuances of the house, as well as some of the different activity that we were experiencing.
That's incredible. Like, just to have it is incredible.
Yeah.
You know, all of that.
I mean, experiences can be, well, quite hard, can't they? Because not everybody gets to even experience certain things, especially when it becomes a bit more than just door slamming or things like that. When it becomes a bit more like, like when people get attacked, like an attachment, things like that, that becomes a whole different.
It does. And you had to be careful, because I could feel this place when I wasn't there. I was always wanting to go back, and I felt it sort of getting a hold. And, you know, you really have to watch that sort of thing. And while I'm glad for the family, because, you know, I keep in touch with the family that owns the house and the renters that are in there now. And it's like night and day after they did the home liberation. I mean, the house even just looks different. And so, you know, at this point, there's nothing that's, you know, I mean, it could probably show up at any time if you let your guard down, but they don't do anything to bring this back. And, you know, you really have to be careful with it, because it will get a hold on you. And while it really kind of spoiled me, because not all locations are like that. You go in and you're guaranteed activity. But honestly, I was glad to see it come to a halt, just because it was so intense and there was just so much.
Exactly.
I don't think there's been many locations we've kind of experienced, not to that degree. apart from chaplain, we've had lots of actual activity in terms of things being thrown.
Yeah.
Nothing as bad as what I experienced at chaplain.
No.
Yeah, and that's scary. That's scary.
It was more almost like it was trying to single me and Jess out, wasn't it?
Yeah,
because every time I left,
pod.
we set up a REM pod, motion sensors in this basement. I went off because I was doing a Facebook Live at the time. I went off looking around all around it. It's quite a big basement. And every time I walked away, the motion sensors would go off. When I left Jess in there on her own, I'd come back, it would stop.
The energy would change as well.
Jess would notice the energy change. She even saw this big 7-foot shadow figure in the corner. That was, well, he said he was absolutely huge.
It was as tall as the ceiling, like, you know, it was massive. And
it seemed like it was singling us out for some reason, whether it doesn't like men or whether it thought it could attach itself to Jess, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it was weird.
It's interesting how that happens. You know, some people interact, you know, some people are almost like magnets, and some people, you know, it just depends, and you just really never know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I find along the way, you're opening up a lot more the more you do. More investigations you go on, the more you become a bit more open. You see things a lot more, you sense things a lot more. It's like everything gets a bit more heightened.
Yes.
And you
learn from it, and you're always learning.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about, you know, doing these. And that's what I'm really excited about with coming over there to London, to England, because, you know, I'm going to be able to meet folks that, you know, essentially live in my computer. You know, I watch their videos and have talked to them on occasion like this, but to get to actually meet you guys and pick your brains, you know, because about the locations and your style, it's all about learning, and I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be a pleasure to see you at Bosworth as well.
I'm just hoping the virus can stay away for as long as it can.
Yes.
And all this can go ahead, because it's going to be amazing to actually meet up with you and just have a good chat, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We definitely will.
Yes. Well, we're coming up to our hour. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. It's been an honor to be on here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Right, everyone. Coming up next is the Soul Sisters. So stay tuned. We're going to play you a short video, and we will speak to you again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Miranda.
for watching, everybody. Thank you,
Miranda. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. See you later. Right, we're going to play the video, guys.